Welcome back to Fixed Ops Focus, streaming live on Friday afternoon. My name is Steve Shaw. What is my name? My name is Steve Shaw, and I'm here with Dave Rogers. What's going on, Dave? How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Steve. Couldn't be better, man. Friday afternoon. Beautiful day here in the East Coast, and hanging out with my buddy Steve Shaw and a couple other guests.
I love it. You made it home safe and sound from your trip in Florida. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've been going strong since about 5:30 a.m. today.
Man,
quite a Friday.
Amazing. It's like a real job for you now.
I know what's going on with it. You know what, though? This is what I have decided. I woke up this morning. So I was actually up till about 10 o'clock last night, which is really past my bedtime. And I was working. I had a call late on Wednesday and a call late on Thursday, right? So literally customers calling me till the wee hours of the night, right? From the West Coast. So I'm taking phone calls, having a conversation. And the answer that I give is the standard Dave Rogers answer. Yes, sir. We can do that right now, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? I woke up this morning and a gentleman that I was considering, I was interviewing him, right? Let's not even say he went to the hiring stage, but has asked me for a job multiple times. I've been through I like the guy a lot. And he said he couldn't make an interview time because of whatever, right? And it was a nonsense excuse, right? And so I stacked that on top of this whole week worth of auto repair, purchasing a car. And I have been told no. If I had to count the time, I can't count on all my fingers how many times a salesperson, a professional in the service industry has said, no, we can't, won't, or don't do that. And I said, if anybody else tells me no, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Like I'm the easiest going person on the planet. But what would make a salesperson say no to a potential customer is beyond me. What do you think about that?
Listen, we talked about it. We've talked about it more than we probably could care to admit. I mean, I don't know what it is. It's just there's something. Didn't you have one tell you to shut up?
I did have one tell me to shut up. Yes, I'm not even counting that guy.
Yeah, so it amazes me, right? So and I've been saying this for years. A customer calls or talks to a service advisor, and every chance the customer asks a question, can I have a loaner? Can I have this? Can I have that? And they're always going, no, 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 no. Right. Yeah, exactly. And then they're all pissed off when they try to sell the customer something and the customer doesn't say yes.
Right.
Like, exactly. What? You've been telling the guy no for a week, right? And so why would he say yes to you? So, it's bizarre to me that a salesperson that's trying to sell you a $70,000 vehicle is saying no to anything. Like where does skill go in saying yes and right now? Let's do it.
Well, I've been on this mission. If you can tell, if everybody can tell, I have color in my skin. I'm a little bit red. I've been running every day. I get a half hour to an hour, if not an hour and a half today, out in the sunshine. And I'm jogging along the other day, pontificating as I do early on. What's the point of a salesperson? And I am getting to this point. And Dave, you and I were having this discussion offline. I'm getting to the point of what's the point of an advisor? What's the point of a salesperson? Because I know more about the cars. I believe our customers know more about their vehicles than a lot of our associates do. And then you and I were talking even about the RO marketing, which we have Jeff here today. And we want to talk about that. It's like, if you're going to say no to me, if you're going to say no to your boss, and you're going to say no, 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 well, what's the point, right? Why right. I can get Claude. Claude says yes to me every time. Claude says yes every single time. And we figure out the answer.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know if I just don't know what it is. There's a lot of people out there. I don't know. It's their one place in life where they have some power, I guess, that they could boss people around. They could boss the little old lady around, or somebody that I just don't get it. I mean, a quick of an employee issue. I got a phone call from one of my GMs earlier today. This is one of those you can't make this shit up stories on the same subject, right? So he tells me, hey, I'm going to give you a heads up. We got a couple advisors, some young ladies that don't like the way they're being talked to by management. And I'm like, well, what's the problem? They just don't want to be managed. They actually put a sign up in their office that said, we can't be managed. That's what they put the sign up in their office. And they don't like the way anyone's telling them what to do. So I was like, well, all right, well, call HR and get them there, and have our HR woman sit down with them, and then when they say they don't want to be managed, accept the resignation and throw them the frig out. Like, what do you mean they don't want to be told what to do? Like, and these are customer facing individuals. Can you imagine? They don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to be trained. They don't want to do anything different. They just want to like hang out and bullshit all day. I guess that's their thing. So,
Hey, and pay me $20 an hour. Well, you know what Jamie said?
yeah,
Promote them to customer. Give them a big fat
that's
promotion.
it.
Like you said, don't fire them. Promote them to customer. You are now a customer if you can't be managed. I just think
Yeah.
that is the craziest. I in my brain, there's so much going on in my brain. I can't even hardly formulate all of the nonsense about that. But we were talking about RO marketing. We were talking about people that just don't believe it, right? Why won't somebody do that? Why would a manager say no? Why would somebody in the position of authority even say no and not even accept the concept? Not even accept the concept and think, oh, this is a great idea, or I don't understand it. Maybe I could learn more. It's just, no, thanks. Nope, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. And they walk around with no. I don't think I've ever, other than this episode, I've yet to say no to a customer. It's always yes with options, or yes, like you say, yes, right now. Let's get it done. And let's do it. I think we should just let's bring Jeff in and talk about it.
Yeah, bring Jeff in. I mean, but this started with your comment about the RO marketing and then the presumptive sale. And is there any reason why you wouldn't want to have this done today? Right. That's kind of when we started. We started a little bit with the saying no. Right. So yeah, we're going to bring Jeff on right now. I mean, Jeff Thomas from service director, actually worked for me for years, and he reached out to me a week or two ago and told me that he thought our episode on the service marketing was brilliant and he had started using it. So I want to bring Jeff in and talk to him about it, because I think he's really embraced the whole thing of saying yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
Someone says we're brilliant. We got to talk to this guy because you might be the first. So
yeah. So Jeff, just so everybody knows, Jeff Thomas, the service director for Matt Blatt in South Jersey for Kia, Nissan Infiniti, and then whatever else the boss asks him to do. So he's always available, right, through the other stores. Him and I have known each other for quite some time now. Jeff was a service advisor for me for years, and then now he's gone on and done bigger and better things. Service director, he's a big shot, and proud of everything he's done, and glad to have him on board, man. Welcome to the team.
Welcome. Tell us about yourself,
Thank
Jeff.
you very much, guys. Yeah, it's been an experience. I started watching your episodes, and I did pick up a lot. So, I mean, and I am a yes man to my bosses and everyone else. I'll at least explore the options first, and if it makes sense, I mean, can't hurt to try it.
Yes. Can't hurt to try. Can't hurt.
So tell us,
I mean, what do we get if we say no? Nothing. Right.
Right.
No, we nothing ever changes. And Dave, you brought this up, or we had a conversation about maybe it's just change. People say no, and they can't see the forest for the trees, and they can't say yes, right? I cannot change my way of doing business.
Well, Jeff and I worked together at the auto mall, right? And so we had a centralized accounting office that was upstairs. And anytime you ever asked them anything, didn't matter what it was, you call them up, can I have this? No. The answer was always no, right? Didn't matter what it was, right? So I said, I go upstairs one day and I said to the CFO, I said, I understand what you do now. I said, you say no to everybody. I said, 50% of the people will go away. I said, then there's people like me that'll come back at you and ask again, and they'll say no again. Now 50% of those people will go away. So basically all you do is there's going to be people that just keep coming back at you. Eventually you have to say yes to something, but you get paid for only doing 25% of the work this way. Brilliant strategy. Brilliant. Right? Because that's the way they were, Jeff. They said no to everything. Didn't matter. Like, it didn't matter. Can I get a breakdown of my paycheck? No. Can I see the no? Everything was no. So tell us how you're doing the RO marketing, Jeff. Tell us what you're doing.
So on your one episode, gentleman said he would add an alignment to the repair order.
Hmm?
So I just took it a step farther. I would go into the appointments the night before I'd go to bed, just jump in the appointments real quick. I'd go through each appointment, look at the history of the vehicle first, see if they declined anything, or see if they're due for anything. I would then just modify their appointment to what the car is actually due for. I mean, so if they made an appointment for an oil change, but it's due for a 15K service, I would just change the appointment to a 15K service, add the alignment, and just use the assumptive sale that they're there because they want their car up to date on any maintenance that's due.
Right.
And then if they had any declined services in the past, I would just add those lines for front and rear brakes or whatever else that the car needed.
So how have the advisors taken it? Like, what how are they approaching it? What are they saying to the customer? Or are they just, how are they doing it?
So they would walk into the drive, greet the customer. Porter was already there, tagged up the car, and gave the customer the appointment sheet. So the customer actually has the appointment sheet and they're reading it as of
Okay.
what they're there for. And they're not even.
You have like a pre-work order, or you just, what do you print
Yeah,
out
there's a
next time?
pre-print work order that we have out there that the porters will all check in all the cars with.
Great.
The advisor then comes out, greets the customer. Hi, my name's so-and-so. I'm here. I'll get your car checked in first, then I'll get you checked in. So we get the car checked in. The advisor sits in the car, checks the wipers, goes the miles, makes sure there's no warning lights. Then does the walk around the car, checks the tires, wipers, etc. Points out the great features, how they're taking amazing care of their vehicle. Then goes over, okay, the paper here says we're doing a 15K in alignment today, bring your car up to its service. And so I'm going to go inside and get you checked in and see what else you're here for.
This blows my mind, right? So I'm driving down the highway. I hear about what's happening with this Ford store, about how a guy's adding alignment to every repair order. It blows my mind, right? I call up my friends. I call up Dave. Dave was like, right? I talked to half a dozen fixed ops guys, and probably half of them said, "Oh, Steve, you're just Steve again," right? And so, but then I'm listening to what you talk about, and you didn't go, "I got to do exactly what Steve Shaw said." You're like, let me see how this would work in my store, right? I love that, right? Nobody, I even in my training, I never want people to go, nobody's a robot, nobody should do this or that. But when you take a concept and you just go, I like the concept, maybe not working it this way, but I could do it this way in my store, right? That would work in Jersey, that would work in California, that would work over here. That is the most brilliant thing anybody could do. Is like we talked about prior to the thing, is like, I'm open-minded. Let's give something a try and see how that would, see how that plays out, right? Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but I'm not just going to sit here and be stagnant, or I'm not going to just take an opportunity and let it pass me by.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I did. I said, you know what? I said, let me just take it a step further and see what happens. Worst case, they say no, but a good 85% of them just agree to whatever we're doing. And it worked at my largest store, my Kia store.
Right.
We're running roughly about like 1,300 ROs a month. So then I was like, all right, Mike, it's working there. Let me just try it at my Nissan store and then my Infiniti store too. And it works.
Amazing. It's amazing.
I like you said 85% too. People go, Steve, where do you get your numbers at? I just make them up. No, I mean, it's what people tell me. It's like 80% is what one guy went from 0 to 80%. And you're saying about 85%, right? So it's give or take. Mm-hmm. It's a majority of people. It's a lot of people that are buying that possibly would not have bought in the past, right? That just warms my heart. I can't believe it.
Yeah, because I would put the schedule out beforehand, and then I would compare it to what I modify it to, because the advisors will attach the pre-print work order to the back of the repair order along with the Hunter alignment printout as well. Mm-hmm. If it failed, then we would go that route. This way I could see if it actually worked or it didn't work. And every morning I would batch the ROs, go through each one, separate them, and that's where I got my numbers from, and it worked.
So is it just you doing it for all three stores, or have you been able to like replicate this for someone else to do it, or teach the advisors to do it? How do you do three stores? I'm just trying to figure out how to scale it.
So I started at the Kia store first. It worked, and then I jumped into the Nissan Infiniti store, started doing it at that one. Once it worked, then I told my managers, hey, listen, this is what I'm doing. This is what I need you to do. And that's it. they really don't question.
Well, a lot of times, do you have a BDC, Jeff, or do you just how are appointments made?
So we have better car people that does answer the phones,
Okay.
but they don't really answer every question the customer has. So they pass on a lot of phone calls to my in-house BDC girl,
Okay.
who then will answer the call or field the call to the right person.
Well, what I find interesting is a lot of stores will have either, especially a lot of large order groups, they might have a centralized BDC, right? They got a centralized BDC, and I always get the comment like, well, my BDC, they take the oil change, which in my mind, the job of the BDC is to get the appointment, right? The job of the BDC is
Correct.
not to add all of this stuff on. The job of the BDC is make the appointment, get the customer coming in, and then you advisor do your job, right? But advisors always say, well, now the customer's not prepped or the customer's not ready. They think they're only getting an oil change or so on. And you're just doing what any advisor, quite frankly, I believe their job would be, is to look at the appointment ahead of time, upgrade or whatever the repair order to the necessary repairs, and then talk to the customer when they come in. And then, you can do the assumptive close, or you could do the assumptive they're not going to buy. And so either way is going to work.
Yeah, it's worth taking a shot at the customer because I'd have to say 9 times out of 10, they don't know how many miles are on their car.
Right.
B, they really don't know what their cars do, for they're trusting you're the expert that's going to tell them what to do.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I did have one advisor that fault me in the beginning, and then following day, I'm like, listen, this is what you got to do. No questions asked. This is my process. Like it or leave it. It's a choice. And so she did it, and she was like, she would text me. She was like, I can't believe this actually works. Like, but it does.
I love it.
Those are my
man.
favorite questions after training. I can't believe that worked.
I can't believe it works. So what do you see next? Do you have an addition plan or anything you're thinking about doing next to expand it, or no?
Well, the owner just hit me the other day with, we bought the lot next door and expanding this, putting another building up for service for me at the Kia store. So now I'm looking into that, and never had 2 stores before, separated by a parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And my express is very busy. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to manage the flow of the cars because, my lot's packed as is. I can't put another car on my lot for a customer. It's that packed. So that's my newest project I'm looking at right now. But I'm always watching your videos and seeing if I can pick something else up that might help. Never know.
You never know. Now, are you doing this in the express lanes too? Are they no appointment necessary?
So my express is a no appointment necessary. Although if somebody wants an appointment, we will make one for them.
Right. Good.
But I am a true no appointment necessary because I really don't want to turn anyone away.
Right.
Yes, of course.
So
I had a comment out there. It says, Tori, what menu they running off of? What menus are you using for your services?
So we're mainly using the actual manufacturer's menu, and then just adding a couple BG services on top of that.
Okay.
But I'm not, I call around, I price myself out compared to everyone else. I make sure that I'm very competitive. So I'm not really going to price myself out of my own neighborhood.
Right. You got to be careful in your area. You're down in South Jersey, and you got some impoverished areas down there. So you definitely need to be careful. You can't. That's the big thing I always say. You can't price yourself out on the phone, right?
Right.
How much is the service? Well, my services start at $69.95. What's included? Oil change, a tire rotation, a multi-point inspection, set the tire pressures, and top off all the fluids.
Yeah.
Well, I need 15K services. $59.95. Oil change, tire. I'm not chasing you away with a $300 service over the phone. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
Now, when you're in a drive-through, I might present that to you, but I'm not doing it on the phone.
I think that's amazing. I think that's the best thing to do, right? And then are you adding those fluid services onto the ticket as well?
So I unfortunately I will. So if it's at 50,000, I'm going to add the coolant, the trans.
Good.
I'm going to add everything that me as a service advisor would want to sell.
Yes.
I only have 50 appointments per day, so it really only takes me 20, 30 minutes every night just to knock it out real quick. It's not like it takes that long. So it's very easy.
It's funny. I was listening to one of the podcasts the other day. I think it was CDG, but he was talking to a service manager from Canada who was talking about looking at, he has smaller stores. It wasn't as much volume, maybe 50 cars a day in his biggest store. And he was talking about looking at the ROs the day before. He didn't go the same step. He didn't say anything like we're doing, but adding the extra lines on there. And I'm thinking, every time we start talking about something, Steve, then I start hearing like these things, now I don't know if he's been doing it forever. The guy seemed like he was a legit guy. He's a fixed ops director for a bunch of stores. But, I think it's interesting to have the service manager himself looking at the ROs, because I think that gives it a little bit more credibility for your advisors too, right?
Yeah.
They're not recommended anymore. They're saying, listen, my service manager reviewed your history, reviewed your appointment, and this is what he says you're due for. I mean, it kind of gives them a little bit of a pass, right? And even a weak salesperson could sell it now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's amazing. I love what Jeff is doing and having him do it. But as you start to get traction, right? You're starting to get traction and people seeing it work. And then as you add those fluid services, or as Dave, you and I have talked about adding those, the previously declines or the previously failed items on the ticket. And it's like, all of a sudden, you didn't start out with a ticket that had 5 lines on it. You added 1 and then you started and you grow. Now, all of a sudden you're growing into that process for our advisors, right? Now the advisors can see that and like, wow, this, like your service advisor said, you're a big guy, Jeff. I'm not sure how I would say to you, no, I'm not going to do that, Jeff. But, as I start to see it, it starts to work. And so I'm like, oh, okay, this is working. I can get it. And it gives me that confidence to go out there. Now, 90 days from now, I got a 5-line RO to present to the customer, or, whatever. Even if we added that 1 extra line in Express, it just changes our world, doesn't it? It just changes it changes our financial picture of our store.
Oh yeah. I mean, just in the last 2 months, the store's hit some record numbers. I mean, could be because of that lovely multiplier New Jersey has. But nonetheless, I mean, my CP ROs are averaging roughly 1.8 to 2.0 per repair order, where they used to be 0.8, 0.9. So now, I mean, it's definitely increased my hours per repair order.
About 25%.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Awesome. The other thing, I just thought of this too, is I think this is a great teaching tool for new or, inexperienced advisors. You're looking at the repair order based on this time, this mileage. This is what an expert says should be done on the car. Whereas a lot of people don't, and especially young folks and people that don't have mechanical skills or ability. I think it's a great way for them to learn. Oh, at 50,000 miles, you need your coolant flushed. I didn't know that. At 50,000 miles, you need your training fluid flushed.
Yeah.
Because we talked about it, Steve, when we had the training for the advisors, right? And we asked everybody, when's your oil changes due? And the girl that had been with the Land Rover for 2 weeks says, 2 years. I wanted to jump out of my chair, because that's what the book says, right? And I beat the hell out of the manager the next day, and I'm like, how does she even know that? Like, she shouldn't even be reading that book, But I think the thing about that is, I just thought of it, is you are training them on what's needed based on time and mileage, So I think it's going to be a great tool. I think the more we go into this, the more we do it, and I think we'll be hearing about everybody doing it soon. You watch.
It's really a no-brainer.
It is.
That's
it
awesome.
Really is a no-brainer.
I think it's exciting. I mean, just to be able to say, and you quantified it. I was at 1.2, here, and now I'm up to 1. Whatever that number is. I can't do math in my head, but 25+%. If I don't have a spreadsheet, just trust me, we're not doing math. But that's amazing, right? And what did it cost you? What did it cost you to do that?
Nothing.
20 minutes, 30 minutes of your time.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, that's the ticket right there. We didn't have to spend $100,000 on an alignment check machine. Forgive me, Tire Profiles, right? We didn't have to go out and buy a tablet. We didn't have to go out and buy, another tool and spend thousands and thousands of dollars. That's no more vendor sponsors for us, Dave. We're never going to get a sponsor.
You just blew it. You just blew it for everybody. Yeah.
You just go out there and do your job, or do the job, and it's a 25% improvement. That just warms my heart. I love it, every bit of it.
Well, I mean, that's the toughest thing, is just getting the buy-in from your advisors. to actually.
Well, when you're 6'4"
Oh,
and you're 260 pounds and you're solid muscle, I'm sure that's a real tough sell, huh? Yeah. Yeah.
Did you say I used to be a cop? Dave, we probably should
Yep.
we should probably bring in our other guest, Mark
Yep.
Payne, right now. And then if Jeff, you'd be so kind, maybe hang out in the green room. We'll talk to Jeff for a little bit, and then we'll bring you back. We'll have a roundtable about all the good stuff that's going on in the car business right now. How's that sound?
sounds great.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.
Let's do it.
He's a character, isn't he?
I can only look. I'm a 6'4" guy, and I'm not going to tell him no. I promise. Yes, Jeff. When would you like for me? How soon? How high? Right? You want me to jump? How far? How high? I don't know what that is, right?
He was probably the biggest. He was probably the biggest advisor I've ever had in my life working for me. It was like, 6'4". I mean, it wasn't just the size; it was the width. It was solid muscle, And if you got him mad, he gave you the look, but he never hurt anybody. So he's a gentle giant a little bit. But
before we bring Mark in, I got to tell a story. When I was a young man service manager, and I'm a big guy, right? I'm at a store in California, and my fixed ops director and we had to fire this guy. His name was Caesar. I'm sure he's not watching. And Caesar was probably 6 foot around. And so me and Kirk looked at each other and we're like, well, you ready to do this? So he brought Caesar, this big man in the office. Like, I think it took two of us because we were scared to death. Like, we gotta let you go, bro.
Yeah.
But then he broke down like a baby and cried. But the bigger they are. So anyway, let's bring Mark Payne in today, and let's talk about parts. And Dave, you got to lead this conversation because you are the parts guru.
Yeah, the guru. Well, yeah, Mark Payne from Solutions, right? And Mark is all parts. He's the parts guru. I'm just here to help moderate it because Steve only knows one expression: parts is parts. That's all he knows. So welcome aboard, Mark. How you doing, man?
Good. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Doing good. I just want to join on your add on to your stories about yes, the power of yes. Believe it or not, so I had a situation this past week. I have a place up in the mountains in North Carolina that I get away to when it's too hot down here in Florida, and I have a GMC truck that I have up there. So I had it dropped off at the dealer in Asheville when I was leaving, so that it could get the service done on it and everything, and so they call me, tell me the truck's ready to be picked up. So I said, well, hey, because the place is on a dirt road up there, so the truck gets pretty dirty. So I said, hey, could I pay you to wash it or detail it? And he goes, no, we don't do that. And I thought to myself, you've got to be freaking kidding me.
Yeah.
No, you're a car dealership. It's like, that was one of my first jobs at dealership, was washing the cars.
Right.
You've got somebody there to wash a car. So
it's one of the most profitable things you can do. I mean, it's like, it's unbelievable how many dealers just won't do it, or how many people, again, they say no. It's crazy. I just don't get it.
Yeah. And it's not like, and I didn't, it's a truck that I bought about 8 months ago. I kind of channeled my inner 10-year-old. It's the Denali Ultimate Crew Cab Dually. I jacked it up about 5 inches, put some 7-inch tires on it. Beautiful truck. So obviously, if I was that service advisor, I would have been, hey, absolutely. And by the way, this might look really good on that truck.
Right.
And sell me something.
Right.
I don't know. It blows my mind today.
The mindset of the advisor. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But you got to do me a favor, Mark. Since you're in Asheville right now, my IT director Stacy is in Asheville, so you got to say, "Hey, Stacy."
Hey, Stacy. I'm not in Asheville right now. I am down in Florida.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had to come back down here for a little bit, and it is hot down here, which is why I love getting up there in the summertime.
Awesome. Let's talk about parts.
Yeah, tell us about your business, Mark. Tell us a little bit about the business?
So we do. I started the company back in 2003. We do we help dealers solve their parts inventory problems, mainly through physical inventory audits, which we do. That's a primary part of our business. And we've been doing that. We service about 800 dealerships across the country. And one of the things that we identified early on is, dealers really struggle with reconciling to accounting. So we created a program doing that, which does daily reconciliation. So it really ties it all together. And then we also have an obsolete parts trading platform that we've brought out that helps dealers sell off their obsolete parts and kind of works in the background so that it doesn't all of a sudden they wake up and they've got this huge problem. It really just ends up helping them, eliminate that as they go, so that it doesn't quietly creep up on them. And then the other flip side to that is that they're able to buy parts and we throw these opportunities at them in the background just to be able to buy parts at a discount. So the idea is that they, obsolescence. My father, who was in the business for many years, who passed away last year at the age of 94. So he lived a long time, and but he was a legend in the business, and he always said to me, he goes, Mark, parts obsolescence will exist until they build a car out of one part. So
that's a good line.
It's one of the most profound things that it's true. It's just you can't possibly do that. So the number one creator is typically special orders.
Right.
So that's what we hone in on, and it's a pretty neat program. And we're constantly scanning your special order file, and chances are another dealer has it over on that bought it, never got the car back in to get it put on the car, and they're willing to sell it at a discount. You're able to pick it up. So it's pretty cool program, but that's what we do.
So you're integrated with the DMS, all DMSs. You have limitations on that. How's that work?
Yeah, we're slowly getting integrated with we CDK is our primary one. Dealer Track we're integrated with. PBS. We're slated to be Techion is coming up here any day now. Our deadline is September with them.
Okay.
Reynolds we do a little bit with, but we can't get accounting data with them, so we're working on that. But
okay. So it looks at the data, it looks at the GL, it looks at the parts counterpad, does the reconciliation daily type thing, so you can have an idea if something got missed or something big happened, because that's always been the issue with parts, right?
Yeah.
In service, you screwed up tomorrow, like the next day, you screwed up, right? Money wise. In parts, you don't know sometimes for 9, 10, 12 months or until the next inventory that you screwed up.
Yeah, and that's what's always crazy to me is managers are always like, oh no, my what am I going to do? How's my inventory going to turn out? That shouldn't be a surprise. You should know, and that worry that people have. I can't tell you how many parts managers are just they're nervous about their physical inventory because they think they might be fired, and the reality is that a lot of times that does happen when they come up short. Parts managers get fired. And I can tell you this, I've had parts managers get fired and I know it was not their fault, but I couldn't prove otherwise.
Right.
It's just short. It could be an accounting mistake. It could be parts always says, oh, I don't know what they're doing in accounting, but my parts department is perfect. And then accounting is saying, I don't know what the hell they're doing down in parts, but my books are perfect. It's them. And so it's this constant, finger pointing. And we kind of come in and just kind of get that away and say, and what we've realized in creating this program, the Daily Rec program, is it's on both sides. There's no dominant. one.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of little mistakes. And the problem is you can't, you know, it's human error. We're going to have that. We're humans, right? So the problem is, if, like what you said, if you can't see it, you can't fix it.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's really what we bring to the table with Parts Rec is you see it every single day. The minute something between parts and accounting go wrong, you're seeing it that day. And that's the power. And so you can go back and see your process, where your process breakdown was, and you can fix that. And if you're seeing it every day, it's just like anything else. You know, if you had a technician and they kept having comebacks every day, you're gonna eventually say, all right, you might be the right person for our company, but you're in the wrong seat, right? So with this, you know, with parts, you don't really have that luxury because there's so many things going on and you can't see it. I mean, most dealers, I don't. The crazy part when I started this journey of getting this reconciliation problem figured out for dealers all over the country was no dealer, no parts manager can, let's say you started your day with, you know, whatever the dollar amount was on your pad. And at the end of the day, your pad was X amount. No parts manager can give you a detailed listing of all the transactions that make up that difference.
No.
And that blew my mind right there. It's like, okay, we're holding them accountable for, you know, $1 million or $500,000, but yet they can't account for it. Right. So yet we have our cashier who has a $1,200 cash bank. And if they're off 2 pennies, we're like, where did that go? You know, go back and recount it.
Well, you think about the amount of transactions of parts. I mean, the average part cost is probably between $17 and $20. That's your average cost on a repair for one part. You got all these parts going into the system, you know, on ROs, on parts counter tickets, wholesale, whatever it is. You know, it's not just like one part number you charge out, right? You charge out a bunch of them. So you got all those credits going back to your pad and then eventually to your GL. And then you have the accounting office posting invoices. At least they do those generally in bulk, but still you have a bazillion part numbers on one invoice, right? And I've seen it before where, you know, accounting double posts an invoice, right? And they don't notice it right away because someone gets smart and they change the invoice number. Or I've seen parts managers double receive a parts order, right? Or, you know, delete an order. I've seen them do stupid things like that. And all of a sudden it's gone, you know, or receive it in the wrong month. That's another one that happens. So if you can see that daily, and, you know, like I've also seen accounting offices throw a used car into the parts inventory. And,
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I have.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different inventory.
Or things get billed on the part statement from the manufacturer, like, you know,
special
tools or something like that. And so all of a sudden that ends up on your parts GL and you don't know it. So with our program, you're going to see that. Here's a posting on the GL that has nothing to match to. It wasn't received into your pad, or it wasn't put on a part as a, you know, when you're not putting a part onto a pad and you're putting it directly on an RO as an in-out, for instance, you know, that's a big vulnerability point for dealers because there's just, you know, there's no control over that whatsoever. So,
and what about outside purchases? How's that all work? Like if I get parts from another dealer, or an outside Napa, whatever, if I'm making POs and stuff, how's that work?
Yeah, so we import the POs. We're pulling the POs in, and we're actually so right now most dealers they you know, good policy is that you're approving and checking all those POs as you're writing them, making sure that they were put onto the repair order correctly with the right cost, with the right source, things of that nature. So, and the reality is no parts manager has that much time, so they end up spot checking them. And so there's a huge vulnerability there. With our program, it actually just serves you up the exceptions, so the things that need assistance. So our program in the background is pulling in that purchase order, and it's checking to make sure on the ROs that part was put on the RO for the correct cost. And if anything is wrong in there, it's bringing it up. If If it passes all the checkpoints, then it goes on through and gets posted to accounting.
Well, I gotta jump in because you had me at daily. And so when I heard about daily, Dave and I talk about daily production and daily this and daily that. And, you can catch a technician, like you said, a comeback, but I'm thinking if a technician doesn't flag his objective today, well, I can fix it tomorrow. 1 hour, 2/10, 3 hours. But if I wait till the end of payroll, well, the guy goes home mad and he quits his job, right? And the same thing, if I let this go, compound this for 12 months into a parts inventory, you're right. He's fired. So when you talk to me about daily, it warms my heart that we have that information right now at our fingertips. And now if you got a problem, well, yeah, we can have a conversation with you at inventory time if you didn't fix the problem that you know
Right.
about daily. So I can only imagine, maybe you could speak a little bit to that, like how much money does that save the dealer by having that daily reconciliation?
So it saves. There's a couple of things. So it's all about vulnerability, right? So the parts department, the parts is one of the largest cash assets in the dealership, right? You can't floor plan it. You can't, it's cash, and it's there. And what's ironic is that most general managers don't really pay much mind to it. They either don't really understand it, so it's just back there, and that parts manager's been here 30 years, so I trust them and let it roll. The reality is that it's such a huge. There's so much opportunity in the parts department for really dialing it in, and it touches so many areas. The ripple effect of the parts department is pretty crazy. So when you have like quantity on hands that are getting, let's say that your stocking clerk doesn't receive these parts and they just take the packing slip, circle the things and send it over and turn it into accounting. They didn't receive it into the, now all those quantities are off for the rest of the year, right? From that point forward, until someone checks those quantity on hands, they're off. With our program, that it's importing the invoice and it's reading every line of that invoice, and checking to make sure that that it was received into the DMS. And same with the quantity. So for instance, let's say that an inventory clerk receives in something that's a pack of 10, right? And they just receive it in as one accidentally. They're gonna, the next day when that invoice is being matched, it's gonna say, we have a partial match here. Here's the part number. Here's the cost is correct, but the quantity is 1 and it should have been 10. We're off by 9. Parts managers can then say, hey, stocking clerk, you screwed up here. Fix that. Go add 9 more. And now you're good. And you're going forward. So that, just keeping your on-hand quantities accurate is such an important part of the overall profitability of the dealership, because again, it touches so many things. If you have a technician come to the counter and they've got and the advisor called to make sure the part was there, so they get the car in and everything, and then the advisor comes to the counter to get the part and they can't find it, you've got a technician at your bill rate wasting 15 minutes of time. You take that and add that up over time, that's a lot of money. Yeah. And then on top of that, just your calls that you're getting in, right? So you get a call in, if they say, if the, they'll say, yeah, hold on, the system says I have the part, but let me go check and make sure I got it. How often do you hear that?
That's such a bad sign when you see that. No integrity.
It's
no
horrible,
integrity of your inventory.
Horrible. And it has such a ripple effect. And that is because it affects your revenue 100%. People think, that's just a housekeeping issue. Bullshit. It's not. It's revenue.
Right.
Because you're not able to, when someone has to put a call on hold and go check for the part, that's taking what should be a 3-minute phone call and turning it into a 8 to 10 minute phone call.
Yep. Absolutely. We talk about in
And-
training, you can put somebody in a hold for about 30 seconds before they're annoyed, and 30 seconds, I'm out. They don't have it. That's
Yeah, and these shops that are calling you, their time is valuable to them.
Right.
Usually it's an independent guy who's wrenching and he's calling for the parts, and the time that he's not spent wrenching on a car is wasted money. So, they're sitting on hold. They have a list of all the dealers that they call for each manufacturer, and to get on the top of that list, especially like if you're a General Motors dealer, they've got at least 3 or 4 dealers they can call to get the parts.
Right.
Well, the one on the top of the list is the one that they get their call answered quickly, that they get the part, and that it's accurate, that they don't get a call back saying, "Oh, sorry, we checked and we don't have the part. We're going to have to order it." Or they show up to the dealership and they say, "Oh, sorry, we don't have it. We just thought we did." And so price really kind of becomes a little lower on their priority. And that's when I say, making sure your inventory is accurate is definitely contributes to your revenue, because it affects those things.
Well, Dave always says people are only called dealerships to check them off the list, right? I'm calling you to see, can I move on? Nope, you don't have it. Move on, right? I'm going to that place. It says yes, right? There's that answer again. Yes, I have it right now. When would you like for me to deliver it, right? That's the only answer.
Yep. Precise.
Question for you that came through one of the comments online, asking if you're using any AI for this.
Any AI
for this to review the parts? I mean, is it, using AI to do any of this stuff? Or there's a ding ding.
I was waiting for that.
So what's the ding ding? You got to fill me in here.
Oh, when someone says AI, like everybody's got the buzzword of AI.
Oh yeah.
Says AI, we have to go.
Right. Yeah. So we actually, with our Parts Rec program, we're reading the invoice. AI is kind of like nothing really that new. But it's just greater enhanced programming.
Okay.
But we're starting to integrate more into our program some of the AI, so that it'll kind of prompt them what they need to do and things that they need to do next. So we're rolling that into as we develop our program. It's becoming more intuitive and smarter, and so yes.
Well, why don't we bring Jeff back in here? Let's have a quick round table and fire off a couple of questions at these two guys before we let them go. And I'm sure it's getting close, and everybody wants to go home today on a Friday afternoon.
John Rondalone putting out there, the only one and only AI is Allen Iverson. Isn't he the one that said practice? I don't practice. Isn't that the guy?
I don't know who that is.
He's a basketball player, Philly legend, I believe. Yes.
There you
practice? Go. I don't need no practice. Yeah. So, Jeff. Yeah, there you go. Jeff, I know you're the service director, but any of those problems that Mark was mentioning ever happened to you about not knowing about parts on the shelf and special orders ever happen there?
No, we're actually pretty good with that. The only issue that my parts manager, Vic, has to stay on top of is making sure that our parts eye doesn't stock us with parts we really don't need because it thinks we need parts.
Right.
So on a daily basis, he really has to go in there and make sure that I'm not getting, 15 orders of mats that I don't need, or a couple fenders that I don't need, or bumpers.
Yeah,
one of the things, Mark, when you said the guy forgets to receipt the order in parts, and he forgets to receipt it in, that's where the parts eye, the rim, and all these other programs bite you in the ass, because they're reordering it that night. You're getting 2, you're getting another batch. So even though your on-hand count is definitely wrong, but now your inventory is definitely too high too. So
yeah, that's one of the things that they struggle with. It blows my mind that they get away with this whole thing. I mean, the whole automatic stock replenishment. But they do. it's and then you got to hold on to parts for 15, 16 months. Why? What planet does that make sense on? I certainly don't know. But it's out there, and you got to deal with it and reject as much as you can. The most amount you can, and like you said, stay on top of it. That's definitely a huge one.
Mark, I know you're a parts inventory guy, right? I talked to Peter, but you guys do more than just parts inventory. I know, as a solution. So we're talking in the service side of the business. We're talking about that assumptive sale, and we're talking about adding additional lines on the repair order, having the customer ready for that. But the one thing that I always scratch my head, I'm loving what Jeff is doing. I love the idea of adding those lines and, assuming that sale when a customer comes in. But my question to parts guys is always this: can we do the same thing in parts? Like if I'm a technician and I walk up to the back counter and I ask you for a water pump, is there any reason why a parts guy can't go, would you like coolant? Would you like clamps? Would you like an additive, right? Why couldn't they just give me the quote for all of that stuff, right? You are a parts expert. Can you explain that to me?
So parts is very, how do I say it? Parts is very kind of just, this is what it is. And
They're different.
Yeah. It's the mentality. This is how I have things. Getting a parts manager is probably one of the hardest positions to fill in a dealership, because you have two completely different personalities you're trying to combine into one person. You want a person who's anal, who's going to have every piece in its place and is going to be on that. But usually that mentality does not have the sales side of it. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So you and then the person that is the salesperson that's like, I'm going to be the number one wholesaler in the country and I'm going to sell everything for 5% profit, but I'm going to be the biggest. And they're the ones that their inventory is a mess because they just don't have time they're not paying attention to the detail, and that they're, So.
I think that's a Dave Rogers thing, because he talks about the same thing with service managers. You got a production guy, you got a technical guy, he's super skilled. And then you got Chrissy, who's the salesperson. You've got these different skill sets. And it is a bummer, or it is something in our industry that we want that one guy, right? We look at Jeff and go, Jeff, you got to do all of this, right? And you got to be a great parts manager. And certainly there's nothing more important than protecting my inventory. But yeah, would you sell something too? You know what I mean? And so right. we expect one person to fill all of these shoes, when certainly nowadays that's a tough ask.
Well, especially in a lot of dealerships where, they just don't have the budget for two, like a manager and assistant parts manager. They just don't have the budget. I mean, it's not there. So
yeah,
that's kind of the conundrum that they're in.
Listen, it's a challenge in our industry, department by department. I mean, if you the personality profile test, right? DISC, right? Not everybody's everything. You might have a little bit of stuff, but in the history of the car business, you always wanted that parts guy to be a high C, right? He's going to manage inventory. He wasn't letting a cotta pin leave the parts department without an RO or an invoice, right? I remember guys like parts managers fighting somebody over an 1156 light bulb. Like wait a second, right? But then they forget you're managing 5 or 6 people. You're managing drivers, right? You're managing the technicians, and then by the way, you need to start selling stuff. Like there are 3 different skill sets if you think about it, right? It is insane that we think, and I've heard of dealerships over the years just getting rid of having a parts inventory manager. Just like I've seen up front in sales, they've had like an inventory manager, that type of position, where they're more of like an accountant. And I think that's smart when you can do that. But like you said, Mark, it's the budget. You don't always have the budget for these things.
So yeah, I think the big thing is I think if it was me, if it was my dealership, I would probably go along the lines of what you were just talking about. Have somebody that's more, detail oriented, because really, unless you're chasing wholesale, that's a whole different animal. And I think wholesale is the last thing you should be chasing. Get everything else dialed in and a well-oiled machine, and then when you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs, then go after the wholesale. But
So let's do one last thing before we let everybody go. I'm going to ask both of you guys. I'm going to start with Jeff. Give all of our service managers and general managers your GM tip of the day. And then I'm going to ask Mark, give you your GM tip of the day for whatever you want to talk about. What do you think, Jeff? What would be a great thing, take away from the day? What would you suggest to every GM out there listening?
My pet peeve right now is inspect what you expect. 100%. I mean, if you want the service drive to be a certain way, you better be out in the drive watching. If you want to make sure that you're giving good customer service, my service managers sit in the drive with the advisors.
Awesome. Awesome.
That's great.
Mark, what about you? Give me a GM tip of the day, and then I'm going to turn to Dave, and I'll shut up.
Probably my number one GM tip, because it's really hard to get a GM to even think about parts or really give a shit about parts when you talk to them about it. So, but my one piece is really simple. As I say, walk down to the parts department, hang out there for a little bit by the counter where they're taking the phone calls. If you hear one person say, "Hold on, let me check and put my hands on the part," you got a problem. And that's the one thing that you can really dial in, and it will affect a lot of things. Chances are that, because your department can look really clean. Oh, it looks perfect. It looks great. Nothing, you could eat off the floor. But if the data in the system is not what matches on the shelf, then that's a problem. And that's the number one way to tell. And it's a really easy way to do it.
Awesome. Dave, you want to wrap this up?
Yeah, I mean, I think both those are great tips of the day. I think, Mark, you're right on. We used to call it parts integrity, inventory integrity, right? You don't have it. If you have a good parts department, the manager and the staff are doing bin counts daily, weekly, monthly, whatever. You're probably gonna have less of that. But when you hear that word from your parts guys, that's either they're dilly-dallying, they're wasting time, they're gonna go have a cigarette, or they really don't believe what they have. And it's I do think, Jeff, same thing. The GMs need to spend more time in the back. Most GMs, the only time they ever know where parts is when gifts are coming in and someone said that, something's in shipping and receiving. So then they go back and say, "Hey, did I get my gift?" Right? That's the only time you see them back in the parts room.
We're shipping out.
Just listen, just go back there, go back to service, go back to the drive. We talk about it every single podcast. Be visible, management by walking around, and in Mark's case, management by listening, because it's huge. You got to listen to what people are saying.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you guys for being here. It's amazing. Jeff, thank you for giving us your success story. I love hearing what you're doing and being open-minded and making our solution better. I love that, right? And Mark as well, man. You had me at daily. Oh, man, just warmed my heart. So thank you guys for being on the podcast. Appreciate you guys very, very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Enjoyed it.
All right, you guys, we will catch everybody later. Dave, I think that's it.
Hey, man.
What else we got to say?
That was it, man. Great show. Again, appreciate the producer and everybody behind the scenes. You guys do a great job keeping us informed, letting us know what's going on, and looking forward to seeing you next week.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, everyone.
All right.